What's going on, guys? Fun with Knives back again, and it is review time. Finally getting around to doing a review on my Real Steel E775 Griffin. A knife that I was very excited to pick up, and one that I gave a pretty positive initial impressions video on, and expectations for that matter, and I think it followed through. So let's get right into it. Of course, I'm going to go over the specs real quick if you guys didn't see the unboxing video. We have a 3.5 inch blade here with a 3 1/8 inch cutting edge. Your handle length when closed is 4.625 inches, making your overall length 8 1/4. So a great size of EDC folder. In fact, it's around my favorite size. Blade thickness on this guy is 0.13 inches, just over an eighth. And finally, your handle thickness is 0.52. So a lot of those numbers feel fairly standard for this size and application of knife, but the weight does not. I mean, this is 3.49 ounces of capable utility, and I love it. I think that's a great weight for this knife to come in, especially when it's all metal. There's no plastic, there's no G10, there's nothing. This is 100% metal construction, which is really cool. So let's hop right into the blade here. Like I said, this is 3.5 inches long with around 3 1/8 inch cutting edge. It's made out of Sandvik 14C28N steel. Now, if that sounds familiar at all, it's probably because you've owned a USA Kershaw, like this Kershaw Shallot, which is using the same exact steel. Or how about a standard Kershaw Blur? This is an S30V, but the standard ones come in this steel as well. And I've raved about that steel in the past because it's really a great mid-range steel. It's not going to compare with your powdered metallurgy steels, but it's going to beat out, in my opinion, AUS 8, 8CR13 MOV, 420 high carbon, if you're looking for a decent entry tension steel that is going to be easy to sharpen, and I mean real easy. So all around, I like this steel quite a bit, and I'm really glad they chose it for this model and actually a lot of their folders. Now, we do have a full flat grind on this very standard looking drop point. In fact, if you cover up this knife, it kind of looks like a kitchen knife, and I'm completely okay with that. It's very utilitarian. It's got a nice tip on it that's going to really get into those boxes and things you need to do those draw cuts on. Overall, the blade shape, grind, steel, I mean, everything about it I like a lot. It's not particularly intriguing, but from a functional standpoint, it's fantastic. Now, they do have a forward finger choil here, so the plunge grind is definitely done correctly. You're getting the same behind the edge thickness throughout, I would believe. Now, you can see that Captain Band-Aid is in full effect here, so I guess I'm just going to continue being a dumbass, right? So on to deployment here. This is something that was very interesting to me. This is just like a Spidey hole. It's a hole in the blade, even though this is very weirdly shaped like a kidney or something, I don't know. But it works pretty decently. It's not quite as easy to access as a Spyderco, but you can do the rolling thumb, you can flick it out with your thumb, do the middle finger flick, of course, and probably my favorite way to open it is with the lock itself. Now, this is a plunge lock. Hopefully you guys can see that. It acts as the detent, so if you depress that, the blade comes swinging out. And it does so very smoothly because this is on, you guessed it, ball bearings. And in fact, these are very unique ball bearings, at least to me. Like all of my ball bearing knives, which are mainly flippers, they're encased in a washer, but these are roller bearings. They're cylindrically shaped and set in a kind of a spoke and wheel pattern rather than spherical actual ball bearings that are encased in a washer. And what that results in is very smooth action, both in closing and in opening. And this knife looks incredibly smooth because once you disengage that plunge lock, there's no friction on the blade, so it can swing freely. And your frame locks, your liner locks are not going to be able to do that, but perhaps your compression locks will. But that's a real cool feature because this thing is insanely easy to operate one-handed. Your fingers never have to go on the blade path, much like an axis lock, even though this performs very differently. Now, the lock itself, as far as strength and rigidity goes, there's a little bit of side-to-side play, and that happened after I acid etched the blade and did some things to it, so we'll attribute that to me because it didn't have that before I started my little project. Now, this is not the standard finish that comes on the knife. There's actually some markings that see real steel and stuff on this side, but I decided to dump it in some ferric chloride acid and then kind of buff it out to give it that polished acid stone wash look. So I think it turned out all right. It's not spectacular, but it was a fun little project to do with a knife. So I will attribute that side-to-side play to me and just my own use of the knife and disassembling and altering things. But the lockup is very secure. I mean, the side-to-side play is minimal even on this, and there's no up and down. It feels solid. And I'm not the biggest advocate of plunge locks, but they're damn fun. And this one seems very strong. It has a whole lot of travel and a whole lot of material blocking that blade. You can see that's what it looks like when it's engaged and when it's disengaged. Now, a cool feature here is that you have a secondary lock. If you rotate that wheel forward towards the open blade, that's going to prevent you from disengaging this lock. So if you're really worried about that plunge lock disengaging, slipping out, or even breaking, if you roll that forward, there's no way you're going to do anything to this knife that's going to cause it to do you any harm. So if you're puncturing bags to get into to cut or whatever you're doing with your knife, that's an added level of security that I wish a whole lot of plunge locks had. In fact, I think a lot of autos would benefit from that wheel. You had something on this Kershaw Launch 1, maybe give you a little bit more security. Who knows? But anyway, I really like it. The button is fairly recessed. I mean, it has a raised rim, but the button itself goes inside that, so it's not going to accidentally disengage, but you do need to be deliberate to get in there. All in all, lockup, deployment, everything's great. Where things get a little bit less great, if you will, is the handle. And the reason I say that is ergonomics alone, because this knife has an aluminum handle and it's anodized black. And you guys know I love anodized aluminum. Something interesting to point out here, though, is that if not all of my aluminum knives are using 6061 T6 aluminum, which sounds like I know what it is really, but I don't. Anyway, it's an aircraft grade aluminum, and the reason I like it so much, obviously, is because it's light. I think it wears well. You drop it, you scratch it, it looks very cool. But really, I love the chalky feel that anodized aluminum knives have. Now, this knife does not have that. In fact, this really doesn't feel like aluminum to me at all. It took me dropping it onto some pavement here to really realize that it was, because it feels kind of like a really hard plastic. And that's because it's a different kind of aluminum, or alloy, if you will. It's a 7075 aluminum. So I believe that's going to be harder, a little bit more wear resistant than that 6061. I don't really know, but it has a different feel. That anodization it's not chalky at all. It's nice and smooth, which detracts a little bit for me. I love the feel of this aluminum I'm used to, and I really think it feels cool and a lot better in hand. So just something to know, it's a different kind of aluminum. If you're thinking this is going to feel just like the rest of your knives, it probably will not. Now the handle, the shape itself, I think looks great. It's got some cool chamfers. I'll let the light hit those. You guys have just been listening to me talk, really not looking at the knife. Some cool chamfers everywhere. Doesn't feel too boxy in hand. And the ergonomics on this knife are just so-so. They're not bad. I don't think this is an all-day cutting blade, really. The jimping here on the back of the blade is actually really nice, really well placed too. I hate when the jimping's too far back, on the handle, or it's way up here where it's in between this portion. It's just right for this kind of saber grip, and it has just enough traction to catch your thumb and really provide the tactility that it's supposed to. Now, the shape on this knife is kind of weird. It's kind of wedge shaped where it's bigger in front. I don't think this forward, or the normal finger choil here is deep enough. I find myself slipping back and forth on it, when I'm doing some harder cutting. But the forward finger choil is decent as well. I mean, you got to be wary of this little, sorry guys, bumping the camera there. This little point here, because if you're going to be doing some cutting and really let that dig in, that'll get you. That's kind of true on any forward finger choil, that is. But I almost like this grip more than I do the traditional saber or hammer. I mean, the reverse grip's not bad if you guys are going to use your knife in that sort of grip. But overall, the handle's just so-so. If I had to knock the knife at all, it would be there, and the pocket clip. So let's get one thing straight first, guys. This pocket clip functions great. The ramp's just high enough. I think there's just enough space here to accommodate almost any jeans or pants you're going to be wearing. I mean, There's decent spring tension on here. It's inset into the handle a little bit, only using one screw. Very simple, easy to take apart and whatnot. It's just ugly. It really is. I want to say that it matches the knife, but it almost doesn't. It's almost a little bit too curvy. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it as I throw the knife around. I'm not doing another take, guys. We're just going to keep going. But yeah, the clip functions fine. It's going to ride just ½ inch out of your pocket or so. But it's just not my favorite, I'll be honest. I wish this would have came with a deeper carry clip, or at least something that matched the knife a little bit better. The handle's curvy at least, but the blade itself has got almost a straight back. So I don't know. Not the best match in my opinion, but it works fine. The overall construction of this knife was actually really good. Like I said, when I got the knife, I mean, the lockup was impeccable. It was great. The action is awesome. It's so smooth, so fun to play with. It's just a good, one of those finicky knives that you just love to play around with at your desk, or, you're sitting at home watching TV. This is a great kind of knife for that. And it's very simply put together. You have one standoff back here, very minimal hardware. I mean, it is kind of that satin finish, but I mean, you're taking a T8 in the pivot, I believe, and then these T8s as well. I think those are T6s. Yeah, those are T6s on your pocket clip screw and that one standoff. I mean, if you get that spring locked in for the plunge lock, this thing is a joy to take apart. I mean, it's really easy. So all in all, guys, do I recommend this knife? You guys have looked over the features and seen the materials and all that kind of stuff. I absolutely do. In fact, I want to pick up more real steel knives because I just think they're great everyday carry tools. To me, they're not particularly exciting. I mean, a lot of them are just plain black and, satin finish or black and stonewash. But they're very good tools, and most importantly, they're coming in at a great price point. If you're tired of spending, mid-20s, low 30s on your pocket knives and want something a little bit more quality, but can't jump up to Benchmade or those great Spydercos or CT, this is a good step in the right direction because this knife cost me $54. And with that knife using Sandvik 14C28 and steel, very well designed plunge lock with a secondary safety thing kind of going on, and on ball bearings, and with great blade centering and just overall great fit and finish, that is a great price point. I mean, it's going to give some of these USA Kershaws a run for their money. This shallot's going to cost you around the same, $60, $50, around there. So the materials used, the craftsmanship and the design are definitely there. In fact, it looks like a lot of real steels, mid 50 price range models are actually really good cutting tools. And this E775 Griffin, I think, stands out just because of the plunge lock and its ease of use. So yes, I do recommend this knife. Just be careful when you do take it apart that you get everything aligned right. It is easy to do that, but if you don't, your lockup will suffer. Just a word of warning, I've had this knife apart many times, and I'm sure somewhere along the way I screwed up the spring tension of that plunge lock, and that's why I'm getting some of that blade play, but I mean, that's kind of up to debate. We'll see once I disassemble and reassemble this knife even further. So sorry for the longer review, guys. I don't know what I was doing tonight, but this is a great knife, and in fact, I'm even looking at some real steel fixed blades just to broaden my search again. I'd love to get into some different kinds of knives and give you guys some more varied content, if you will. So thanks for watching, and remember, have fun with your knives.